So can we start with this group? So what is it that you can take away from that discussion? What is it that you focused on?
Well, I think our main finding was that it's very different from a small company perspective to a large organisation. So stress becomes much more of an issue when you've got big workplaces. And so it's very interesting to listen to the experiences from someone who has a big workforce to look after in HR, as opposed to somebody who's part of the 200 team or 2-woman team.
Thanks. What about yourselves?
Our spokesperson.
Well, I think we because we know about the stress risk assessment, the other two ladies on that stage, the sort of importance of that, and you said about getting people to understand, what stress means and the harms of stress, and getting the companies to buy into that really, which is quite important. Which you need before you can even bring in any interventions, because you need that resource to be able to do it. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on that resource to do that either.
And even before that, that's a really good point. Even before that, the first step that I would encourage you all to think about is creating a business case for tackling this. Well, why is it that we want to do this? Well, what's the benefit? What's it going to cost us? What's it costing us if we don't? And that's the most effective way of ensuring that you can get a budget approved to be able to invest in this area. So, one of the things I want you to think about as we finish today is, how can you create a business case for promoting wellbeing in the workplace, for tackling stress and absence management issues? Great, thank you. How about yourselves at the back?
I think we started with the basis of with the health and safety sort of thing. You've got the tools there. Our discussion is about the implementation.
Okay.
My personal issue is a lack of evidence base.
Yeah.
So there's if you haven't got the evidence, why would anybody bother implementing it?
But have you done a risk assessment?
Not in that sense.
Okay, because that could be a good way of collecting the evidence, is to run a stress risk assessment. And we've got a tool which we can provide you free of charge to do that as well. So if you're interested in that, give us a shout.
Can I just ask on that point? I think the biggest issue we have is that we'll have a lot of individuals that go off with the symptoms of stress and put that on their self-certified forms. So they'll go off with depression, or they'll go off with back pain, which is all, as you were saying earlier, directly related to the stress. So it's very hard for us to identify that stress is a big problem, because they're not putting stress as the actual cause of their actions.
Now, I appreciate if you're looking at absenteeism records as a way of identifying stress, it's a challenge. That's where it becomes very important to do a stress risk assessment. And I can share with you some of what the law suggests on this. There isn't one law that covers stress. It's kind of a piecemeal approach. But under the Management of Health and Safety Work Regulation 1999, employers are required to be more active about identifying risks through risk assessments of health and safety issues, including stress, and to make sure there are adequate controls in place to deal with the issue. So there is a requirement to actually sort of perform that kind of risk assessment, and also to take measures to control that risk. Essentially, employers are required to provide a workplace that's safe and healthy. Stress is a risk hazard, but also obviously it can lead to illness. So the risk assessment process can be scary for a lot of organisations. They don't want to start talking about stress because they're fearful that everyone's going to suddenly say, I'm stressed, and this is an issue that's affecting me. The experience is, all the research suggests that actually reverse is true. That when people realise that their employees are investing in them and point programs to support them, they're actually less likely to just hold the stress card up. As I've already established, stress is an illness. It causes illness, so it will lead to other areas of absenteeism. But if you can provide them the support that's required, it means that if they are being picked up with these issues, they're getting what they need. But equally, the ones that are just playing the stress card, if they know that they're going to have to fill in a stress risk assessment form, they're going to have to see an occupational health advisor or the company doctor for an evaluation, they're less likely to pay that card. So actually, if you're fearful that people are just going to use it as an excuse, actually you can prevent that from taking place by ensuring that you've got the means in place to pick up the ones that need the support and actually filter out the ones that are just use it as an excuse for a day off work.
I think for any company really to show that you care about the employees and you're willing to do something to support them. The first thing to do is, I think, acknowledge that stress does exist.
Yeah.
So you can do something about it after.
You're absolutely correct.
A good
Because
way, sorry, can I just say a good way of endorsing that is to actually get yourself a stress policy and tell people that they all have a responsibility and what those responsibilities are. So you've got those boundaries, but also it's the company saying that this could be a problem here, that's why we have a policy. And it's very clear that you need to, you know, if you feel you're stressed or you have started stress, that you have to do something about it.
Completely. Does that answer your question? And
Yeah.
as I said, like you know, the absenteeism records are a way of picking up this data, but you need to actually explore it further, and the stress risk assessment is a good way of doing so. And then obviously if you're picking up certain issues, then we can explore that further with focus groups, and there are other ways being able to explore that further. If you're interested, I can talk to you more about that outside this session and show you ways that you can tackle it. If any of you are interested, feel free to come talk to me about that. So what I'd like to do is I just want to do one more exercise, just so we have a really good and clear understanding of modern day stress in our organisations. What are the causes of stress to you and your people at work? What causes stress? Okay, workload. Now, is that volume being too much or too little?
Could be both.
Could be both, right? Would you all agree with that? Can you see how not having enough work can be stressful? What else?
Role conflict.
Conflicts, yeah? Yeah. Timescales.
Unrealistic expectation of someone's role or the individual.
Yeah.
Mismatch.
Expectation.
Work-life balance.
Yeah.
The style of your manager. Them.
Well, you know, we can broaden that out. People in general. Yeah. But yeah, management style.
We have lots of hygiene issues like space, noise, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, environmental issues, definitely. That can be massive causes of stress.
Culture, in terms of work culture, sometimes there is this long hours commitment, let's all work in a high pressurised environment culture.
Okay. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list in any way, it's just to kind of get you to think about some of the things that could cause stress. We could be here for hours having this discussion. I'll share with you some of the common ones, some of the ones that tend to come up quite often when we have these discussions. So, everything from unreasonable demands being made at work, overwork, office politics, feeling out of control of your destiny, especially in the current climate, if people are fearful of redundancies. Even if your company isn't making redundancies, if your company's hiring, people are reading in the newspaper that things are going wrong, and they suddenly become fearful of their position, even though nothing's happened to them. It's the power of the media. Feeling of being underappreciated, uncertainty about job security, difficulty with communication, miscommunication, poor communication, lack of communication, over communication. I have that, and this is something we have to address in our organisation actually. I get CC'd on every email that goes out, and it's just like, I don't need to know that. So yeah, communication can be a challenge. Difficulty with resolving problems. Now, do you see that problems don't necessarily need to be stressful, but the difficulty in resolving those problems can be stressful. Some people thrive on challenges and problems, but it's when they don't have the support and the means to resolve those problems that can become stressful. Bullying or harassment, poor work practices, lack of control or influence over demands made on individuals, low pay, shift work, long hours culture. For those of you in the hospitality industry, some of these may resonate. Job security, unsociable hours, lack of promotional opportunities, rigid supervision, lack of a clear job description. I know that one of you mentioned that you're going through a process of doing your job descriptions. Performance-related pay, inadequate time to complete tasks, unrealistic deadlines, lack of social support and poor management techniques, bad relationships with supervisors and colleagues, harassment and discrimination, prolonged conflict between individuals can obviously be stressful, customer clients complaining, impersonal treatment of work, lack of communication and listening skills within the organisation, no recognition or reward for good job performance, lean production, total quality management systems, KPIs, I can go on. The working environment, as you so correctly identified, the working environment, noise, heat, cold, poor lighting, poor ventilation, badly designed layout of workplace and equipment, unpleasant and hazardous working conditions, overcrowding, poor job design, technology controlling the pace of the work. there was a survey done, I think it was in the Metro Evening Standard. They did a survey of, I think it was 100 people between the age of 25 and 40. And they asked them, what's the first thing you do in the morning and the last thing they do at night before they go to sleep? Look at their mobile phone. This is technology controlling the pace of their life. I find myself sometimes guilty of doing this, that the last thing before you go to sleep, the first thing you do is you check your phone.
You might be setting your alarm.
It's everything from looking at Sky Sports, checking emails, Facebooks, and this is the thing, that we have this powerful technology which seems to control our lives. That conference I was talking about earlier that I was speaking at, I did get there eventually, there was several hundred people there. I had the opportunity to speak before a break, and then I was due to leave at that point. So I wanted to use the bathroom before I left because I had a long drive. So I went to the toilets. There's large toilets, there's 15 urinals. These are HR and senior management professionals. What are these guys doing whilst they're spending a penny? So, whilst you're actually having a pee, they're on the phone checking their emails. This is technology controlling the pace of our life. We don't even have a second to enjoy a pee. This is the society we live in today. I was horrified. The hygiene issues alone. But you get the point I'm making here. And many people have work BlackBerries and iPhones and emails. We don't ever get to switch off. That in itself is a challenge.
But people generally can still control that, even if they're on.
There is a choice.
Because they can say, well, I was in bed at 8 o'clock, so I turned it off. It's still a choice, isn't it? Even though it's a habit, it's still.
But it's also the pressure that's put on them.
It is. There are managers I've spoken to that will be getting emails from their staff at 2, 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's because they've got workload, they need to get it done. There is a choice, but actually a lot of us, when we're stressed, you can relate to this. When you're under stress, do you feel like the element of choice is removed from you? You don't feel in control of your situation. So even though there may be a choice, the illusion of choice has been removed. So technology controlling the pace of the work, too much, too little work, repetitive work, boredom, lack of job satisfaction, working alone. Some people, field salespeople or home workers or whatever, that in itself can be stressful. So if those are the things, if these are some ideas of what causes stress, what does that look like? What happens? We started talking about this earlier. Let's put a few things up on the board and talk about this in more detail.
He's been told already.
Mood, yeah? Performance.
Yeah, I haven't spoken.
Or if we're talking about maybe good stress, performance improves.
Yeah. It depends what you're doing. And if you're a professional athlete, yeah, performance will improve. If you're sat at a desk, a level of stress will help you to focus, definitely. Too much stress and it'll be counterproductive. So the level of stress, definitely, I'll take that on board. What else?
It can definitely affect your personal relationships.
Definitely. Well, firstly, if you're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, do you need your sex drive or your libido to be functioning effectively?
Not at that moment in time.
No, and unless you find saber-toothed tigers attractive. But for most people, would I be correct in saying when you are being attacked by a wild animal, reproducing is the last thing on your mind? Yeah, you all agree with that? So you don't need your sex drive to be functioning efficiently. It's oxygenated blood that flows to that part of the body that allows your reproductive organs to function efficiently. Your oxygenated blood is being diverted to the muscles that are going to help you to defend and attack your way out of that situation. So stressed people usually find that their sex drive diminishes, which in turn has an impact on their relationships and also their ability to communicate effectively. You don't want to talk to anyone, you don't want to talk about your day. Well, it depends. If you're a lady, you probably want to talk about your day in great detail.
Be careful, you might do that with
But actually, there are biological reasons for that. I wish I had the time to talk about that in more detail. But men and women will approach stress differently, and there are reasons for that. Because our brains are wired differently. Women's brains have better links between the left and right hemisphere. They're more likely to connect and relate to the issues that are causing them challenges. A man will more likely to focus on something else. A man that's stressed is not going to talk about what's causing him stress. He's going to talk about football or women or something else to distract them. Whereas a woman is more likely to focus on that, get it off their chest, and they feel better. That's why a man's twice as likely to have a heart attack, because they don't express their emotions.